Welcome to my Facebook Live discussion today on the Testore family. Three members of the family. We have Carlo Giuseppe, the father, and his two sons, Carlo Antonio and Paolo Antonio. Carlo Giuseppe was born in 1660 in Milan, or just outside Milan, but then started working in Milan. So the Testores, we always think of being Milanese instruments. He trained with the Grancinos, Giovanni Grancino, in Milan. So there's a lot of similarities. Now, first up, I'll just go straight into it and I'll show you a violin I've got. We have a Carlo Giuseppe Testore here, and this is a 1690 violin. If you look at the scroll here, see it comes out very frontal here, quite front, very round, so it's quite typical. This scroll actually sort of reminds me of Amati, actually. It's quite deeply fluted, so we go in there. Now, what to look for in a Carlo Giuseppe Testore? Well, if you look at the back, which is a lovely piece of wood, slightly plain coloured varnish, but you'll see the purfling on this violin has actually been added later. So the Testore family are known for doing what we call scratch purfling. So you put just two lines, ink them in, and pretend it was purfled. Often you see that on both sides, sometimes just one. Of course, when people got these later on, they sometimes purfled them. So this, I don't know when this had the purfling. And the purfling, you can just make it out. If I can just show you there, you can just see that just around here, there's a little bit of, it looks like almost three pieces of purfling, but it's just actually the original scratching, and then someone has purfled over the top. The scroll, nicely made, like I said, which the father, Carlo Giuseppe, was the last maker of the family that could make a decent scroll, in my humble opinion. Right, so move right along. If you look at the Fs, actually the F hole, slightly Amati styling. It's so 1690 this was made. We have to think what else was happening in Italy at that time. We had Stradivari in Cremona, of course. 1690 was the start of the long pattern Strads. So when you compare this violin, which is more Amati style, to a Stradivari of the same period, very different. So there's a lot going on between Milan and Cremona. So anyway, we'll move on to the next member of the family. We have Carlo Antonio. Now, he was born in 1693, died 1765, and here's a Carlo Antonio Testore violin. Very different looking violin. Notice the shape of this violin. This is very much what I would call the Testore model. Okay, so slightly long, slightly narrow, arching can be sometimes a little higher. Certainly the father, often you would see, one thing I'll say is on the purfling is you'll see beechwood purfling sometimes, so the purfling can be very white in the middle. This violin was made in 1741. What can I say, very low slung F holes, so the Fs look like they're sort of a little bit too low, don't they, in terms of the violin. Okay, scroll, this is where things start going wrong. It's a very, well, it's his own style, shall we say. Again, quite forward, but it looks like it's a normal scroll that's been pulled a little bit and shrunken. So that's a typical Carlo Antonio scroll. Often we see in his violins an internal stamp of two eagles, I think it is, or one eagle, with CAT on it. That is where they worked. They worked in a street that was the sign of the eagle, so they used that, they encompassed that in their brand stamp. Right, so that's the son, Carlo Antonio. He often, of course, he was more prolific than his father, and he often did scratch purfling as well. This violin, just quickly looking, no, it looks pretty original, I think. I'm not seeing any scratch going on in the top. So there you have it, there's that one. Now we get to the other son, which was Paolo Testore. I'm not going to say the black sheep of the family, but you know, he was certainly not as refined as the other members of his family. Pumped out lots of instruments, and actually if you look at this violin I've got here, it is definitely scratch purfling. So if you can just make that out, that is not real. Looking at the top is fine. Yes, no, the top is his own purfling. Very wide Fs, very big nicks. That's those little marks just here. And the scroll. Well, this scroll's not so bad. I'm not convinced the scroll. Maybe it's had some reworking or whatever, because they usually left a lot of wood in their scrolls. So there was a bit of room to play with. But if you notice the shape of that violin, so quite big across here, lower bouts we call these, the lower bouts, and smaller up here. It doesn't have sort of symmetry. And if you think this violin was made in the 1750s, we've had Stradivari, we've had the genius of our violin world, the god of perfection. And yet somehow it didn't get through to everyone, did it? Right, I'll have a quick play of these violins, and you can have a listen. Right, so we have Carlo Giuseppe, 1690. My usual piece, which is not much. Nice violin. I might add, this violin used to belong to the first violin of the Carducci string quartet until he upgraded, and I got the violin back. So that's nice. The Carlo Antonio Testore, let's have a quick play of that. I think my playing's getting better. Right, and then we have the Paolo Antonio. That was my phone in the background. Right, that's a nice, certainly nice sound, very powerful. Now, one thing I can quickly show you is I have, sorry, there's my phone again. Someone interrupt. Turn off it. I have a copy of a Carlo Antonio. I'll grab that phone. Just 1 second. Yeah, just press the. There you go. Go away. Sorry about that. Normally I answer the phone, but my secretary's away today, my assistant's away today, so it's just me. Although I do have a few friends here watching at the moment. We have a Carlo Antonio Testore copy viola made by Philippe Girardin in Switzerland. And if you look at this, this is a typical example of what Testore did. So times were tough, had to be quick, didn't do any fluting along the back of the scroll. There's a side-on version of the scroll. So that, again, is very Testore looking at scroll. Very nice viola. It's a very nice copy. One of the best, actually, I've ever seen. You'll see that. It's a very fine example. 20 years old. I sold a very similar viola, an original, to Roger Benedict, in the principal violist of the Sydney Symphony. And if you ever get a chance to hear that, it is one of the greatest violas around. I'll quickly have a quick play of this copy, and that will be it. Ooh. Should have tuned up. Right, there we go, that's today. So that's the Testore family of Milan. They were working in Milan from about 1680 to 1760, around that area. So a big period. They're like similar to Grancino, maybe not as refined as some of the Grancinos. Like I said, Carlo Giuseppe was the best maker, and then we get to Carlo Antonio, and then Carlo Antonio Testore. There is a violin almost in every price level. So there we have it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you hopefully next week. Bye-bye.